Funk. I'm one of the team managers with IMAGINiT. I've been with IMAGINiT about 20 years. And if you're just tuning in and don't know who IMAGINiT is, we're part of RAND Worldwide. We really work with the Autodesk tools. We do other things as well, Archibus, the Leica Geosystem scanners, and we really focus on the software, but also professional services and training. We're one part of RAND. There's other parts as well, such as RAND 3D, which is a provider of Dassault software and Dassault and PTC training. And if you've taken an AutoCAD class, an Inventor class anytime in the last 10 years, you probably used an Ascent courseware book to do it. Ascent is just a part of our company. We work with them quite a bit. We provide training materials for Autodesk, PTC, and Dassault software, interestingly enough, which is exactly the type of training we do in the other companies. So all of this, and this has just been fun to be a part of. I've been doing this type of map for a very long time, and it seems like we're constantly adding pins and adding locations. I'm one right at the top of Ohio there in Toledo, and just to give you a sense of what it looks like throughout North America, the different locations that we have and as part of that. So I want to dive right in and talk a little bit about Inventor and Inventor 2020. And when I was looking at the new features and going through and pulling things from different PowerPoints and all of this, of course, one of my favorite things to do is to show software and to play with live software and show things off. And I thought, man, there's a lot of this that I can't show. And it's because it's kind of behind the scenes sorts of things. Like I can bring up an assembly and double click on it, but to get a sense of how much faster it goes is difficult. So I just kind of want to talk through the several different enhancements that are part of this. And one of them is the idea of just performance enhancements. So with an assembly, if you do double-click on a part for in-place editing, work on an assembly, it's faster. Now, it is faster. I don't have a metric. I can't say it's 50%, 100%, 400% faster, but it is definitely faster as we go in and to do that. Selecting components, selecting parts, those types of things, that all gets a faster performance. If you have multiple components selected, pan, rotate, zoom, they've really changed that. Component pattern, I thought this was interesting. This was a place they spent some time on, and it really has improved the performance of components patterns, how it computes, just how it generates that information in there. That's just all faster. And I think it's definitely something you'll notice. You know, pound for pound, if you put 2019 against 2019 versus 2020, you will see a difference in how that comes together and what that looks like. When you're using the visibility toggle, the marking menus, all of that they've enhanced that. They've also changed Express mode. Express mode is you're allowed 3D section views in Express mode now, and it's really improved that performance of creating those section views in Express mode. And tube and pipe in general. It's just overall performance of tube and pipe has been improved. And that was, of course, one. Tube and pipe's been out for a very long time. I don't really, I haven't seen much change with that, with what they've been doing in terms of editing that and updating it. So I'm glad to see that we've got something now where it's improved tube and pipe, because a lot of times when you had a big tube and pipe assembly, you've got all this information, it can be difficult to navigate through or see all the different pieces. The performance extends into the drawings as well. And when we get into the drawing view and we're going over and we're taking a look at that, view previews are faster. Changing just the hidden line display, particularly in assemblies. And parts, you're not going to notice. It is faster, but the faster is so negligible that it's not something you're going to see right away. But when you get a large assembly in, you're bringing the information in as part of that, you're going to see a significant difference. Changing hidden line display, auxiliary view, drawing section views, a lot of these different types of things are improved with how we would work with them. AnyCAD, just simple things. The import dialog box shows up quicker, and you can import and edit. The performance of import is improved. So I always thought it was pretty quick before with AnyCAD, but they've updated that so that it's working faster. There's a lot of those different types of things, just general improvements. And again, I don't get to show that because it's how do you show that? I remember years ago I did a side-by-side, tried to show one, show the other, but it just doesn't come through very well. All right, so let's talk about the software itself. This is kind of interesting, some of the ways that they've set this up. So there's this new light theme interface, and I'll point one thing out about that kind of stood out to me. And they've done a visual refresh on a lot of things. Some of it is just a refresh where we've got just the icons look a little different. The feature manipulators are going to look a little different. We've got some graphic presets in here. And the graphic presets, those just allow us to select how things are going to appear in terms of, is it is it high quality, balanced, or performance? And it just degrades certain things or really shows it off really well, whichever way you're going. And I'll pull that up in just a moment to show that. But one thing, and this has been a theme that they've been going through. Oh, my goodness. This is one of the things. I'm sorry. I was waiting for this one. I got it in the wrong order. We'll talk about the idea of the UI in a moment. But before I do, multi-monitor support. So you could, in the past, open two sessions of Inventor and have them both open and switch one to one monitor and one to the other. But now you can literally tear the tab off and move it to a different monitor. So again, not something I can show, but something that's really cool. This was something when I went to a gunslinger a while back at Autodesk, I saw this, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, I'm all good. I kind of like the multi-monitor. And then I really started using it, and it's fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Multi-monitor has been something that's been a request for a very long time, and now we're finally seeing where it's at. All right, so I was talking about the refresh that we have. This is a big one as well. We saw this with the whole command a while back. It's been extended. So we have these different command enhancements where now, instead of a toolbar that comes up, we're going to have a property panel that comes up. And I'll point this out. I want to jump into the software and show this off because I think that's where it really makes the most sense, is once we're in the software to kind of see that and how that works. But essentially the panel layouts, the dialog boxes we've been used to, my word, probably since like Inventor 8 or something, now they've been replaced with this idea of the property panel. So it's a really, really cool tool that we can access that with and go get that. So I'm just going to share my screen. And I think I am. There I go. There's my Inventor. Cool. And you can see I've been working all kinds of just little different parts and playing with different things as I have been preparing for this. So I'm going to grab a part. And as this is opening up, you get a sense of just that light theme that they have. That's one of the things that usually doesn't matter too much to me, but this blows my mind. I no longer see those kind of orange Inventor parts, those orange and yellow. Everything is this blue, and that took me a little while to get used to. Probably more than it should have, I guess. I don't know. It just definitely was something I had to really. It didn't feel like I was looking at an Inventor part when I first looked at it. All right, I'm just going to add something to this. Just a little cutout or something on here. I'm not so worried about the sketching as I am when I go over here to extrude. Just like we saw with Whole before in 2019, now I've got this as a panel over here. And a lot of the things I can continue to do, I could just stretch this out, pull it in. But all of the standard things we would expect are kind of in here. So I've got my profiles, my direction, my distance. All this is part of that. So now the panel is going to define everything that I have as part of it. Whether I'm adding material or removing material, I can go take a look, and I've got advanced properties, and I can work with the taper and the IMAGINiT and different things. So it's really the same dialog box we saw earlier. It's just in a panel format. And this was something that kind of surprised me, how quickly I got used to that panel format. That was something that just very, very quickly I was like, got it. I wasn't looking for my dialog box after about the third time in. which kind of surprised me because I've been looking for dialog boxes for a very long time. But I'll go ahead and select this profile, and I'll say, yep, let's make a cut. Great, throw that through there. Awesome, sounds good. Interestingly enough, as I've got, this is essentially an apply button. If I hit that, I've now made that one, and I can go on to my next, and there we go. So I don't have to bring the dialog box up multiple times. It's all just part of that. I was just playing around with the idea of extruding something. Revolve is exactly the same way. So if I go to my Revolve dialog box, again, it's built into the panel. These panels, by the way, can float. So if I want to go back to the idea of, I've got a specific dialog box for it, I can have the Properties panel floating out here. I really like it here. I've gotten very used to that now, and I like being able to access that, all the information right as part of it, just being able to select through there and get that. So I can fill out the properties, put it in, all of it's right there. That was such an easy switch for me. And if you haven't used the new hole command like that, that's really where it all started, is the hole, we would have the hole tool where we could go select some things and make it concentric and all of that, and it's all right through the panel. Not everything is there. So if I place this hole and I go to fill it, hey, look, there's the fill it dialog box like we've always seen it. I think, obviously, this is the direction it's heading. It's all going to be panel-based. These dialog boxes aren't going to pop up on our screen at some point. So just want to make you aware of that. With those different tools, the extrude, revolve, I believe thread was one of them as well. It's all on the properties panel. Now, loft is not. Loft still has the dialog box, and I believe coil does as well. Yeah, I don't have any sketches to go off of, but coil's going to have that old dialog box. So a lot of them do, but the heavy lifters, extrude, revolve, sweep, thread, hole, and I would almost guarantee, I'll just throw it out there, I think now is one of the point releases, we'll see perhaps fillet and chamfer go in there as well. So the properties palette, I like it, and a really powerful tool that we have within there. So that's just a little bit of the interface, being able to go through and view the, of course we've got this new kind of light blue overall feel for everything that we have within there. And so the commands, extrude, revolve, thread, and then sweep. And I didn't want to show sweep yet because sweep has something else. Sweep now has solid sweep that's part of it. And I was pretty happy when this came out. I was just very surprised. This was something I had a client, and this was years ago, and they did barrel cams. And they were having trouble with the sweep command, getting sweep to give them the proper path and the proper cut that they were expecting to see on this barrel cam. So they said, gosh, I wish it could just sweep a solid. And of course, at that time, that just seemed like absolute fantasy to me. I'm like, there's no way, it'll never sweep a solid. I don't even know how you could sweep a solid. Well, let me show you how to sweep a solid. So this addition, part of what this does, it allows me to do things like simulate a tool path right inside Inventor. What would it look like when this comes in and takes a chunk out of it? Where does this feed into it? How does this select it? Whatever it is. Now, I'm making use of a couple of things here. I've got two different solid bodies. And one of them is just this base, and the other one is my tool that's going to go through and sweep out along here. So you don't want overlapping segments, obviously, in a tool path as you put it in. The main tool body should be at the start of the path, and the path has to be tangent. At least G1, that's tangent, or it could be G2 smooth, but it has to be continuous. Typically, our best results are going to be with G2. So I'm trying to, this little tool body that I have, I'm keeping it real simple. And typically that's what we want. If you're trying to sweep this really complex thing along there, it is going to be pretty difficult when you're going through and doing that. One thing I thought was interesting, and this was just a note that I read in the help, it said, if the sweep fails to compute, try removing fillets. In some cases, it may help to add fillets. So I guess good luck. Fillets will work one way or the other. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and sweep this along. And I'll say, all right, let's go ahead and sweep. And I have the option, solid sweep is on, solid sweep is off. So it's just a checkbox, essentially, that I can go through and select. So my solid sweep is on, so of course it says what solid is going to be swept, and I'll select that one. Looking for my path, I'll just select my path that I have here, and actually unselect that. Select my path that I have as part of that. And now I can say what solid is it going to what's it going to do? Is it going to join material? It's going to cut material, so let's remove out, and we're going to remove it from this piece right here. So now, typically, once I get a preview with Inventor, if I can get a preview, everything else is there, but it's taking that and using it essentially as a tool body, going along this path and cutting that out. So the angles that it comes in and how it leaves, all that information, it's treating it as a solid sweep along there to create a much more complex path than I could create with just the regular sweep tool. Because I can define this much more clearly, and I'm going to get a truer representation of what that tool would look like cutting through there than I would in another way. So solid sweep, I think it's a good addition, and it's so interesting to me that it was specifically something a client had asked me for years ago, and we're just now seeing it come in as part of this. Another thing, and this is something people ask for every now and again, and when you're in sheet metal and it's going along, everything's great, and then you hit a point where it just doesn't work. You can't unfold something, whatever that something is. So now we've got a tool called unwrap. And what unwrap is kind of designed for is it can flatten faces that we can't calculate with sheet metal. And this is right from the Autodesk help files. I thought it was interesting because I probably could unfold that sheet metal part. I mean, it's got some bends and some different things in there. Maybe that's stamped up at that part. But the idea is we can flatten these different faces. This could be a fabric pattern. It could be a stamped object. One that I found really interesting, I was working with a couple of weeks ago, was a client that puts labels on butter tubs. So they've got a label that has to wrap around that and bring that in. And then you could have, that's what they were looking for. They're like, look, here's the tub. We just need to figure out how the label's going to look like. And, so we can go cut that out of some vinyl and put it on there. The pattern that we're generating, the unwrap that we're generating, as you go through, it's going to give you some information so you can see the areas of tension. That's kind of the heat map that you have. This is not following K-factors. This isn't following unfold rules. This is just kind of giving us a flat pattern. So realistically, I think this would be something very close. If it was a really complex part with all kinds of different bends, in this case, we're getting so little, it's got a little bit of yellow, mostly green, 2 points of red. I bet this is coming really close. But because it doesn't follow very specific rules, sometimes it can be easy to misinterpret, I guess, is what it would do. What this generates is a surface file that I could then use in a drawing. So just as a real quick idea on that, I've got a component that I'll bring up, and I'll use the unwrap tool on it. So here's my component, and this is some sort of stamp or something. As I take a look at it, it's just been stamped out. Now I want to go through and pull out what that might look like. So unwrap, it's just one of the standard tools that we have here, and it's interesting how straightforward this is. And it's interesting that it's built, we have no dialogue, it's built right in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select the faces that are going to be part of this unwrap. And as I go through and do this, I'm going to turn just a little bit. You can see that really my greatest area of tension is going to be around this kind of bottom edge as I put that in. Say, okay, sounds good. Let's go through, and I'm just using these surfaces to kind of flesh this out and get where I want to go. So that is what a flat of that looks like. Again, I've got no allowances. I don't have a whole lot of tolerances. It's taking that shape and flattening it out, showing me what the flat would look like. And when I say okay, this seems kind of strange at first. What I end up with is this surface here and then my original shape right there. So it's using a vertex point on there to keep this kind of locked down and square. It also automatically creates a special view for me, an unwrap isolate view. And if I go back here to my master, unwrap, not my master. If I go to my unwrap isolate, it's just the unwrap by itself. Okay, so it basically now is turned everything else off, and I've got just my unwrap by itself. It's built into the master. It's built into the other pieces. I didn't have to create that view. It's not part of the template. It just comes in automatically when I do the unwrap. And then if I create a drawing from that, I can use that view to pull out what that would look like. And I'll just pull up a drawing here real quick so we can see that information. So now I'll say, okay, yep, base view. And then do I want the master or unwrap isolate? I'll go with unwrap isolate. And go get the view that I want of this, wherever it's at. Where'd you go? And then, so it's bringing that in. I need just to save this one over here, sorry. So I can have those different views. That's the idea behind it. Change it here to angle, that's fine. Unwrap isolate. Not seeing my sketch there for some reason. But yeah, it'll bring that in, and then I can generate drawings based right off of that. I can have the different surface bodies and just see the surfaces that are part of that. So unwrap allows us to unwrap things that, again, we probably couldn't get to any other way, and then we can use that in our drawings as a general view of that general presentation. A couple other little things kind of stood out to me that I thought were interesting. The extrude command, it was kind of a strange thing. I didn't run into it a whole lot because I typically don't model that way, but if you had in the past 3 sketches and you extruded them with a taper, you could end up with 3 pointy sketches. Like it basically would break that information out and you'd have to end up with 3 pointy sketches as it goes along. Now it will merge the faces so that all of it kind of goes together and you can have all of the information in one place as a single part, which is probably really what we're going for. When you're picking loops and regions, you can hover over them. It's easier to select them. They basically have just updated that a little bit so we can make it a little easier to select a few different things. I got to keep my eye on the time here, so we're doing good. Because we got a few more things that I do want to hit on here. One of them is Frame Generator. And a couple of big things have happened with Frame Generator. One is end caps. The notch command is now part of the properties panel. Again, we're seeing that continue on as we have that. And you can save presets. In the property panel, this started with the whole command, but you can save presets. And that's really nice with notches, so we can control a few things there. We've also got just some of the standard values for that. So we've got a notch command. We've got these end caps that are part of it. Some of the miter goes into a property panel. Trim and extend to face is updated and has been updated as well. And we can remove end treatments from multiple members. It's really just kind of enhanced the way that we work with it. And this one I thought was just so cool. The in-canvas manipulators. I thought, man, I like how this works, because this is something that I would have difficulty with before, trying to look at this box and figure out which little corner to pick to have it show up the way I wanted to, and kind of typing in numbers to watch it roll. That was a big deal. So I just want to jump over here and kind of show a little bit of this. And there's a couple other things I wanted to show as well. It started in 2019, but there's so much that really shows up here, I think, that I really like how this works. Sure, update my assembly. I didn't change, did it? Okay, good. So I will go ahead and go to my design here, and I'm going to insert some frame. So this hasn't changed. Looks exactly the same as it did before. I'll go some simple square tube, and I'll say, yep, we'll drop this piece in, and we'll drop this piece in. You can see these manipulators show up already. So as I'm putting this in and I'm building this frame out, we can see these manipulators show up. And then when I say OK here, of course, notice, and this was new in 2019, but I just want to point it out. If you hadn't noticed this, it's giving it the name frame, and then it's pulling in a unique code for each one of those. And that's really been a big deal because now I've got this unique code that I can work with. I'm just going to say OK, OK, OK. That code now means each one of these, even though the part information is the same, it shows up with this additional, the file name is actually named separately. So I think that's a great way to set that up. I'm going to insert another one of these pieces. And part of the reason I want to do this is just so I can take a look at this manipulator that I have on it. So now, in context, I'm holding it here at the middle. You can see there's the line, there's that. I can say, oh, no, wait, I'll just pick the top. Or I'll just pick the side over here, or whichever one that I want. And it's just really straightforward, rather within this box, to try and think how that is. I think I can even go so far as to take it off of there, rotate it, give it a direction. It's still just manipulating the same things I have in here. It's just doing it in Canvas. And I think it's such a great way to set that up. And the rest that I'm dropping in are going to follow those same rules that I put for that, just like they would up here. And again, we see the naming, and we can pull that out. So now I'll pop those pieces in, and I'll throw in just a couple more, sitting them across the top here. I just want to play with that manipulator idea just a touch more with how I can access that. So I'll go with a rectangular tube. Yeah, sure, 2 by 2 by 8. And if I pick this edge, I can now determine which side of that do I want to go to. Do I want to lay it down? Do I want to stand it up? Where do I want that to be? So it's just really easy to build that up using those manipulators. I think that's such a great addition to what we've had with the frame generator all along. Sometimes that was very difficult to see. Now, too, if I need to change something on one of these pieces, I select it, right back to those manipulators, right? So it's not only part of the placing process, but it's part of that as well. So love it. It's really, really cool. So with Frame Generator, I really like that addition. There were a few other things as well, and we're kind of getting in toward to where it's like, yeah, there's some of this and some of that, and the pots and pans kind of part of it. The meat is all there, and these are the little pieces that kind of make up the rest. But one of the things is with sheet metal, and this was something I hadn't run into personally, but I'm like, oh man, it would have been a pain. With sheet metal, it now recognizes a sheet metal part and can link the sheet metal style of the source to the other. Because when I first saw this, I thought, well, shoot, we could always mirror it. And you could, but it didn't take the information along with it. The joint command, they've updated a little bit so we can get the center point of a slot to define a joint. It just removes the amount of constraints and joints that we have to put on something. Tube and pipe. So now we can, like we can with the file naming with the frame generator, we can do it with tube and pipe. We can specify how it creates files and folders. How do we want them to be named? We could keep the folder structure flat and completely get rid of that AIP subdirectory. We could pull in certain attributes on how we want to name it. So it's really very useful how we would do that. And similarly, when you do a shaft generator from the Design Accelerator, you can determine things on that. What do I want created? Do I want all of it created? So sometimes there were things that just worked that way. Now they're kind of updating it so it works a little more intelligently and makes sense. This one was really interesting. At first I thought, well, I don't know if I need, where this fits or who could use it. But it's the idea of read-only mode. So Inventor, when you install it, it will install Inventor, and it also installs Inventor read-only mode. And it's just that. You can analyze interference, you can measure, you can look at the assembly. You cannot create information in read-only mode. You can't create new drawings in read-only mode. You can't do annotations of any kind. You can measure. And it's really the full Inventor. It's the full Inventor installation, but it's a read-only mode. Essentially, this is the replacement for Inventor View. If someone doesn't have Inventor installed, they could download the free trial. Once the trial ends, all the Inventor stuff, creating, editing, manipulating, is gone, but read-only mode does not expire. Doesn't require a license. It's just a read-only tool that we can go through and view the information with. So that's an interesting idea. Again, not much to show there. You just open, there's a version literally called Inventor Read Only, and when you open that up, you're in a read-only mode. I want to talk just a little bit about interoperability, and there's been a few adjustments on this. CATIA, we can import now CATIA v5, and there's a 6R 2018. We can do v5 6R 2018. For JT, it can be 10.2. Parasolids is Parasolids 31. Rhino, we can import Rhino 6. And SolidWorks, we can do 2001 through 2019. So that AnyCAD import, they continue to adjust what is available there and how we can get to that, how we can work with those. You can also export to the CATIA format, the JT, Parasolids 31, and Rhino 6. So not a huge update and change, but again, keeping in line with being able to access the different types of files that are out there and being able to get to those, I think that's very useful. And they continue. They've been dedicated at keeping that going and keeping that information available. So we've seen interoperability with these other systems. I mean, here's Creo, here's SolidWorks, here's all these different things. But what about with other Autodesk tools? So starting now, and this came in 2018.2 as a tech preview. This is now a full feature for Inventor and Fusion 360. We can bring in, there's AnyCAD for Fusion 360 designs. And this was not true before. There was no easy method of bringing in the Fusion information and bringing it into Inventor and seeing it. And so now we can use the generative design workflow that's available in Fusion and bring that directly over into Inventor. It's by AnyCAD, but this is a way that we can share that data between Fusion and Inventor, so we can get access to generative design, any other workflow that we might have where maybe we've got an R&D department that's working on part of it, and now we want to pass it on and work with it on the next side, however we would want to set that up. So there's a couple different ways of accessing that and pulling that together. And I think we're getting close to the end. So yeah, that's a big one, being able to do that. Interestingly enough, the desktop app, if you're looking to download 2020, you haven't put in place yet, the desktop app is a content delivery tool. You're probably using it today. It should be available in there. If you don't have that, you can always go to your Autodesk account to get that information and to bring it in. So what I want to do, there's always lots of questions on these different things. I've seen a few of them come in as we go. So Cassie, I want to spend at least 10, 15 minutes here, open it up to a few questions.